G'day team, Mike, Goldfilelds Travels. Just a quick video. I'm only about I'm only a week off heading up to the goldfields. You'll see from the previous videos I've wrapped pretty much everything up. You notice I've got a swag, and I have the swag and the stretcher in the back of the car. I'll take that as well, just in case I head out in the vehicle and either I get caught out on a spot, or for some reason I decide to stay the night. Unlikely, but always have plenty of water and a bit of food in the back of the car and some sleeping gear, so if I do get stuck I'm going to have something to sleep on tonight. I'm going to have a comfortable night's sleep. So I just wanted to do a quick video based on the old fuel usage on the DMax. So the last trip away I noticed, because I'm used to running in 130 litres that I used to run in the Cruiser, and the Cruiser used to get, we're maybe talking 16, 17 litres per 100, pulling the dot on a good day. But 130 litres is, you know, a reasonable amount of fuel, and when you come back to 76 litres, which is running to empty, as was 130 litres, but I could still do about 700 k's in the Cruiser, 800 k's to empty in the Cruiser when I was towing the trailer. That's not the case in the DMax. So the situation is, you know, do I carry a couple of jerry cans, because I have 2 jerry can locations on the dot, which I generally use for water, or when I was running a generator I used to have one with fuel in it and one with water. I suppose, you know, thinking if you first roll it through the cogs, you know, 76 litres, or, you know, we're averaging what, 8.4 litres not towing, averaging 11 half litres towing. But when you break that down and you've got some uphill and down dale, it might work out to a little bit more. And if we're saying 12 litres per 100, now we're starting to pull the range in a fair bit. And this became quite obvious to me. You know, I was quite used to I'd become quite accustomed to the bigger tank in the Cruiser and the litres per 100, you know, miles per gallon, when I was driving it. And the reason that I've started thinking about this is I nearly got caught out the other day. So you'll see in the previous video I had a trip away, went down to Eagle Bay, Betty's Beach, a few places like that. So I left Shane, so I called into the bay again. So when I'm checking the weather for the next, you know, going along, I had a look at the weather for Augusta, and Augusta had some cracker weather coming up. I only had 3 days left before I had to be back in Perth, and it had some cracker weather coming up. It's great days and virtually just a breath of wind. So consequently I decided to push on to Perth. Now I had just over half a tank in the DMax. I think it's about 370k or something to Augusta from where I was, 380k from where I was when I made the decision, and looking at about half a tank. Now I was looking at the readings on the dash, because keeping in mind that, you know, the models now, and my model has, you know, distance to empty, average speed. It has a little bit of a trip computer display on the screen. I've always questioned how accurate they are when they're built into the vehicle, but I'm thinking technology's pretty good now. DMax, pretty good car, you know, cogs spinning over, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm okay. Had a look on the dash, and it said, I don't know, 340 k's to empty or something. I'm thinking, because even going north there's plenty of servos, and I'm thinking, oh, there's bound to be a servo in the first 100, 150k, certainly within the first 200. So off I toddle, and away we go. And I was going a little bit harder, I suppose, than normal, because you know, I wanted to punch through Augusta and get a spot in the caravan, and get a spot, you know, just out of Augusta there before the day got too late. So not giving any real thought to it, off I went. What I didn't realise was, when you do the inland track, you know, up where you go up through, you know, more away from the coast, I suppose the high road, you know, that you might take going back across to, you know, Augusta. I can't remember what the road was actually, but it seemed to me to be like the quickest route. And what I didn't realise was there's only about 2 servos in the first 200k or 250k or something. And so I decide, you know, the decision is I'm going to stop at the first servo. I stop at the first servo and it actually just closed. This servo is only open from 9 till 2 on weekends. You know, go figure. It's not actually a servo. It looks more like a shop. They got new Bowsers and new driveway at the front. So I figure it's just a shop. You know, they've decided to sell fuel. But I thought they had a commitment to certain hours actually when you were selling fuel. But regardless, I pulled in there. I pulled the pump out, stuck it in the car. Nothing happened. And so I had a look and I see closed on the door and the pumps are unlocked. Go up, knock on the door, no one there. And just as well, because I had a look and they wanted $2, nearly $1 more for fuel. So I thought, oh, it's still right. Still say I got a fair bit of distance. So I start punching along. Fuel tank's getting lower and lower and lower, and getting a bit more lower, and I'm starting to get a little bit concerned. I'm thinking, geez, where's the next servo? So I have a look on the app, and mind you, the phone reception through is absolutely terrible. So I have a look on the app, and Manjimup's the nearest, you know, service for fuel. I have a look. Manjimup, I think it said it was 100 and, let's say 170 k's. Yeah, it's about as near as I can remember. Have a look on the dash. Says I've still got 210 k's. Oh, I'll be cutting a fine, but I'll be right. So I'll start punching along. Take a little bit easier. Conserve fuel. The gauge is telling me I've got probably 50 k's to spare on the dash on the car. The fuel gauge is down like on 2 bars. Then the fuel light comes on. And it's this stage, I don't know how far out of Manjimup I am, but I start getting concerned. Phone reception's terrible. I found a spot where I could look on the phone and see where the nearest servo was just before. I'm in a dead spot, and I'm thinking if I run out of fuel, it's going to be very untidy, and I'm going to have to wave somebody down and offer them $100 for their 20 litres of diesel if they're carrying any spare stuff, which is a fairly likely scenario. There's a lot of vehicles coming through there, dual cabs with vans and that, you know, they were fairly freaking, so I figured in time I might be lucky enough. Anyway, not wanting to have the inconvenience, I had Barnes with me because it's not ideal parking on the side of the road. It was getting fairly warm. So I decided to have a look on the scan gauge, and I learned a lesson from that because the scan gauge, basically the dash reading was about 90 k's out. So I had a look on the scan gauge because I'm on the second screen. I manage, you know, how much fuel used, how much is left, how much time I've been travelling, what my average speed is, you know, what my average speed has been. I have the second page is all data about trip data and how much fuel is remaining and how much time to empty, which it kind of works out a bit of an average on your speed, but how many k's are left. And I think it said like 74 k's or something. All I know that when I looked at the fuel and the distance I had left, it worked out to about 6 litres left in the tank by the time I hit Manjimup. And I thought I'm going to be cutting a fine, and that's based on the distance that I see on the map. What option do I have? You know, I've got to push on. So I start taking it easy and I start running at 100k, and I feather the throttle a little bit when I'm on the hills. You know, I decided to drive in manual mode for a bit and try and manage the fuel consumption with gear changes. Not because I didn't think I was going to make it, but because I knew it was going to be fine, and I wanted to give myself the best opportunity to not get too low. But as it turned out, I roll into Manjimup with the scan gauge saying I've got 4.3 litres left in the tank. Cutting it pretty fine, eh? So I take note of that, pull into the servo, and mind you, fuel was about 80 cents a litre cheaper than that other place back down the road. I don't know how they can justify that. So I fill up, keep in mind what the scan gauge says, go in, fill up, and it was 0.2 of a litre out on that scan gauge. So the scan gauge was pretty right. Here I am, you know, like almost getting close to running on vapours. So from that I thought, when I'm going north, I'm going to be dragging the camper. So I've only had one trip to Leonora dragging the dot. And I think I filled up twice on the way, and I pulled in Leonora with about half a tank, or maybe a bit over half a tank. I think I was running around about I think I was about 12.5 litres per 100. And so it's made me think. I thought, if I'm going to be 130 k's out from Leonora, I can fill up in Leonora, I'll drag the trailer out, but out and back, we could be talking, 260, 270 k's, maybe 280 k's with the camper. So that equates to at least, to half a tank or a little bit more. So does that mean if I drive around quite a bit, I'm going to have to run back into Leonora just to fill up so I've got enough fuel to get the camper out? Or do I simply take 2 additional jerry cans and fill them up, so when it's time to go back, 40 litres is going to be enough to get me back into town, but when I can throw a jerry can in before I drive back. But regardless, the whole point of the discussion is 76 litres enough? And if you're towing, I'm not so sure. If you're just doing the grey nomad thing and you're on the main roads and that, yeah, sure, there's servos every couple hundred k's. Although if you're going north, there is a bit of a space up there. I can't remember where it's from, but there's a bit of a drive up there where I think it's close to 400k without any real fuel stops. So, if I'm going to be doing any remote touring, especially if I choose to go up Nullagine Way in that this year, I've sort of made a decision. I may not go that far. I might pump up to Meekatharra, but if I was going to push up that far, it's a long drive into town, just to get some victuals and that, just Nullagine itself, and then it's a hell of a drive to, it's a day's trip to go to Newman if you need to, grab some alcohol and update your victuals and not pay $60 for a bottle of gas. Nullagine, they have a little shop and all there, but crikey Moses, you break the bank stocking up there. I think I paid $100 for a carton of beer. Anyway, back on track. So, do I need to adopt 2 jerry cans? Now, this is for petrol. I'm not sure whether you can put diesel in petrol cans. I'm not sure. This is a plastic or nylon or whatever they call it. But I'm not sure whether you can put diesel in one that's for petrol, because I'm not sure if they have different chemical balances in the materials. But the other topic of the conversation is, do you fit a long range tank? Now, it's definitely raised my interest. ARB make a really good tank. I wasn't interested in the other brands because, and I won't mention the other brands, but I've got a mate with one brand, and he's had trouble with the tank splitting and leaking. And there's another brand, and I think it's more associated with the steel tanks. I'm not sure, but don't get me wrong. But I'm not going to say, I'm not going to name and shame. But I've seen on more than one occasion, long range tanks, given trouble with splitting or leaking. But the ARB tank is some sort of new poly plastic type stuff, and it's fairly impressive if you have a look at the test that they put it through. And I've never seen anybody complain about problems, with that tank. And they offer 100. I think it's 130, 128, 132 litre, but it's around that, pretty close to 130 litres. They're offering a long range tank. So let's investigate this a little bit. What does it mean when you put a long range tank in? Well, it means you get a lot more Ks. It means I can do 700 or 800k, I suppose, dragging the camper if I needed to. Takes away the issue of having to carry extra fuel, which I'm not a real fan of. So basically, I suppose you'd say it fixes the problem. Does it introduce any problems? Well, there's a bit more weight. Reduces your ground clearance a little bit. Brings your ground clearance down to about. Brings your clearance down to about, I think, level with the U-bolts that bolt your axle for your rear springs. Not an issue for me. They're very, very hard to puncture. They will take a bit of abuse, being the compound they are. So I suppose that's a negative. One negative against the positives. What about your fuel tank full and your fuel tank readings? Well, I sort of worked that out, and now that I've worked out that don't rely on how many Ks you got left on the dash of the car and how many Ks you really got left, their scan gauges, and I've had this in my other vehicles as well, but I was pretty well knew the scan gauge would be accurate. But that scan gauge is always accurate within, you know, 0.2, 0.3 of a litre. So I put a long range tank in, gives me 130 litres. The main gauge doesn't move till I get down to the remaining 76 litres, and then it'll start reading the fuel empty. The kilometres to empty will be inaccurate possibly, but they were 100k, 105k out as it was. You know, I'm running on vapors and it's telling me I've still got 105k to go, which was, you know, well out of whack. But if I rely on the scan gauge, I put the scan gauge how the size of the new tank. Scan gauge reads the fuel usage, calculates how much fuel is used, how much fuel is remaining, how many litres per 100 that we're running at, and we'll do a calculation on distance to empty. So that solves that problem. And to be honest, all I really want to know 90% of the time is when I'm down on the 76 litres, which was the size of the normal tank. You know, once that gauge starts moving, well, I know I broke that 76 litre mark, and you know, now I'm running on would normally be the standard tank in the DMax. So I'm giving that some thought. They're quite expensive. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think you get much change out of a couple of grand. I'm not even sure if that's fitted. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, I really can't remember. I did look it up and I thought, oh, you know, it does warrant some serious thought. But I think the one main benefit that I can see in this is I can fill up when the fuel's cheap somewhere. I can fill up in Kalgoorlie at a good price, drive out to my camp, even if it's 140 k's out of Leonora, do what I need to do out there, and probably still make it back to Kalgoorlie before I need to put fuel in the tank again. You know, the fuel issue's solved, isn't it, to a degree? Well, I think it is. And if I'm just doing a trip and I'm not dragging the camper, wow, I could probably drive from Perth to Karratha without even having to put fuel in. Anyway, for this trip I think it's going to be a couple of jerry cans with fuel. But looking in the future, especially if I do well in the goldfields this year, I might put a bit of money aside and I might look at that long range tank. So I did say this was going to be a short video, but I suppose it'll end up a little bit longer, but I thought it was a topic worthwhile discussing. What have we got? Well, we got 24 minutes on the clock. The video I'll probably round down to about 15, so there you go. I hope it's of some, you know, I hope this is giving you some room for thought, guys, especially if you're planning on starting to travel remote and you've got a dual cab. Most of the dual cabs are pretty much in the same boat, and you know, it's only if you buy a 70 series or, you know, Cruiser or something like that, you're going to be looking at the bigger tanks. But I don't even think the 300 series has got the fuel capacity that the 200 or the 100 series has from memory. So it's food for thought, and doesn't seem like much, but oh, I'd hate to run out of fuel in the middle of nowhere. I would have hated to run out of fuel before I hit Manjimup because the phone service was shite. Okay, team, that's it. Another old fellas travels tailgate chat to discuss. I tell you what, when I first sat down here, that tailgate was pretty warm. I thought it was going to burn me buttocks, but I didn't. See you in the next video. Present planning. I'm 1 week away from being in the goldfields up there, you know, looking for gold. So chances are the next video will be me heading off, passing through Leonora and lobbing myself out somewhere where I think I'm going to get a bit of gold, you know. My first day prospecting. Take it easy, team. Remember, DMax 76 litre tank. Is that enough for towing and using a DMax as a tourer when you're towing not only a 1600 kilo camper with a little bit of wind resistance, or whether you're towing a 22 foot van with a lot of resistance? Give us a thought, guys. Nobody wants to run out of fuel, and you don't want to be running your tank empty all the time. And you don't want to be having to fill up at every servo when the fuel price is going up and up and up before they start coming down again. Well, good guys, this is the old fella signing off one more time. Catch you in the next video. Woo! Yeah, mate.